I was curious about you because you said at the beginning that even though your mother had taught you, in some sense, these woke precepts, there was something in you that rebelled against it.
Yeah,
what was that?
Yeah, it's not. I don't rebel against the idea that, for example, there is institutional racism. I don't think it should be called that, but there are inequities in society between, say, black and white that are due to racist attitudes, usually in the past, and racist biases and racist lookings past. All of those things are definitely true. There are all sorts of things in Black history that have helped to set us back that one should certainly know about. One should know about the redlining of neighborhoods, where in many cities, most Black people lived in neighborhoods where banks would not give you a loan. All of these things are very real. I never felt like I rebelled against that. What I rebelled against was the idea that you base your whole sense of identity upon those things, such that you live a life that's abbreviated because you're exaggerating how bad it still is, and you're distorting what's necessary to create dignified lives for Black people. And my feeling's always been, you probably have about 80 years. You know, you're lucky if you've got 80 years, and if you spend your whole life maintaining, in my time period, the same battle poses in the 80s and 90s that people needed in the 50s and 60s. After a while, you've spent your life play acting, and then you die and the world goes on. What I rejected was the exaggeration. And so, for example, I remember if there was one moment where I realized there was something wrong with me, it was in the wake of the Rodney King trial in 1991. And a lot of Black people I liked very much were united in saying, what happened to Rodney King shows that a Black man can't get justice in this country. And I remember thinking, no, that statement would have made sense in about 1965 and in many American cities, 1975. And there were islands of it even in 1991. But the idea that as a 20-something Black person, you were living in a country where you just couldn't get justice, it struck me as beyond rhetoric, especially given the general attitude they had towards what being Black meant then, as we were standing around at Stanford University, a campus where all of us have been evaluated.
Bruh, who is this motherfucker, dog? Who is he? John Mcwhorter, bro. I know the black community does not like him, bro, because he talking. I mean, he's so much more eloquent than I am, bro. But he's saying the same shit that I feel and I think right now that Black folks do not want to hear. How I used to be. They're not trying to hear this, man. And he hit the nail on the goddamn head, bro. It's like, Black folks are so wrapped in how they think the world is, they take a step back and actually assess what the hell is going on. It ain't as bad as you think. Exaggerated was the perfect word. But I mean, everything tends to become exaggerated when your emotion is tied to it, dog. When you let, like, the Rodney King example was a perfect example. You know, I wasn't around. I wasn't aware of what's going on back then because I was a fucking poo-poo. But it's the same thing as when you see something bad happening to someone Black on the internet and you let this one occurrence represent the climate for every Black person that lives in America. You know what I'm saying? We let this one thing represent how society views Black people. They only hyper focus on these incidents in social media, and I've beaten this dead horse countless times, but we allow that to represent the societal climate in which Black folks live here in America, and that's not the case. That is not the case. You know what I'm saying? But everything is touchy. Everything is emotionally driven when it comes to race and Black folks in America, and it's hard to get outside your way. It's hard to get outside your way. Like, the biggest thing in Black folks' way is Black folks. Once Black folks can tear down this wall and look at things clearer for what it actually is, man, then you can actually take full advantage of the 80 some odd years that you get to live on this earth. Otherwise, you're just a slave to your feelings. And that's always going to be an obstacle for you. Once you break from those chains, man, It ain't no thing, man. Even when you run into racist types of situations, bro, because racism still exists, but we're not living in the 1960s no more, man, bro. Yeah, this guy here is it. This guy here is it, bro.
It according to adjusted standards out of the idea
I
that
know they're gonna call me Uncle Tom this, bootlegging that, and kiss my bootlegging ass then, goddamn, because y'all holding your own selves back with this stupid ass. Well, it's not stupid. I used to be there. I can't have that aggression toward. I just respond that way when people respond to me this way. I'm still a man out here. Motherfuckers be out here talking crazy. I'm gonna hold these crazy motherfuckers accountable. But at the end of the day, man, you gotta get out your own way. You got to get out your own way. If you feel differently than what I'm saying, as a black man, as a black woman, you personally, how often can you legitimately say that you encounter racism day to day? You know what I'm saying? Legitimately, from any background, look at your situation and say, okay, that is racism. If you encounter that shit day to day or more times than not, all right, fair. But people like that live in those situations are the minority. They're not the majority. The majority of black folks do not encounter racism day to day. Not impacted by racism day to day. And it's so subjective as well too, because what one person may feel like is racism, another person may not feel like is racism. You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
were really wanted on that campus, etc. That we were supposed to still be speaking that language that the Black Panthers had spoken. It struck me as a pose. And there was a part of me that was deeply disturbed by the artificiality of it, and that you were actually expected to live it.
Why are the okay, so you use very specific words. Oppose, artificial, as opposed to what? Like what, on what base? Like you're comparing it to something, and it sounds like you're comparing it, and you don't just regard it as an exaggeration. Your criticism has gone farther than that in the past. I mean,
artificial opposed to the reality. That's what it is. The black folks that live in this world, live in this artificial world, and they're opposed to anything that opposes their perspective, their frame of mind, the way they see the world, which is reality. They live in this racist world where everything is against black folks, and anybody that says anything to oppose that, they oppose. It's artificial. It's made up in their head. All of it's made up in their head. Well, not all of it, but the way that they feel, they've grown to become the way they feel at being a product of their environment and through the information that they've gained and the things they've been influenced by throughout their entire life. It's hard to get outside of that. I had to get hammered down daily through this shit, talking to y'all to get to this spot, man. But it's a hard thing to do. But that's what he's talking about when he said they're opposed. They just don't like what I'm saying.
You've also directly stated that conceptualization of the problem in this form is actually interfering with the solutions that we still need to generate.
Facts.
So it's not just an exaggeration. It's a problem in and of itself, and that's a deeper criticism. So what's the artificiality as far as you're concerned, and compared to what? Yeah, what you're trying to live, apparently. But what is that exactly?
The question is, how much of an obstacle is racism after formal segregation has been battled, after racial attitudes changed profoundly in the 1970s? And I'm just old enough to have watched that happen. It gets to the point where, okay, racism does exist, both social and institutional, but how much of an obstacle is it to doing pragmatic things that will make poor black people less poor and all black people happier? So quick example would be that these days you can look at the fact that black kids tend not to do as well on standardized tests as other kids. It's there. Now, you can look at that and you can say, well, if black kids don't do as well on the test, that's because of racism, and so we need to eliminate the test because the test
don't work
is racist. Now,
you need a multivariate analysis. It just ain't because they black. It has other things to do with it as well. You know what I mean? And where are they? Who's the teachers? What type of community is it? Crime, money, things of that nature. Just your socioeconomical status. The lower your socioeconomical status, the lower those test grades are going to be. And a lot of and black folks live in a lot of lower socioeconomical places compared to everyone else. So that's directly going to influence those grades. You know what I mean? But He said, I want to get back to what he said, like how big of an obstacle is racism actually? My question would be to the world, to the black world, or whomever lives in this with this frame of mind. If you believe the world is as racist as it is, how would you fix it? What would you do to fix it? What would need to happen? Because there's no way you can get rid of it. You can't get rid of it entirely. Can you get rid of people murdering out here? No. Can you get people out here doing grape? No. You can't get rid of frame of minds. You can't get rid of perceptions. You can't get rid of ideologies. You can't do that. And as long as those exist, you're gonna run into situations where something may be racist. But as far as like the institutional racism that people say, or the racism that just exists in society, I mean, how do you fix that? What do you do? What policies need to be put in place to get rid of that? You know what I mean? Because you can't change people. You can only change norms and how they live. So what would you do to fix it?
In what way is the test racist? 40 years ago, maybe those tests asked you what wine goes with chicken. That hasn't been true for generations now. So it's not about asking people things that they have no reason to know. How is it racist? And there are people today who even will imply that black thought is somehow incompatible with tests like that, which is very close to saying that black people are incapable of disembodied abstract thought. And many whites will chime in.
It's probably identical with that claim.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, especially given that the people who are saying it know very well the history of that being said about black people. And so you look at the tests and you say that because black kids don't do well on them, they are examples of systemic racism. Well, you have to get rid of racism, so you have to get rid of the tests, which means that you tell America that black kids can't have their abstract reasoning measured without it being racist. And then when you get somebody saying, well, then black kids just must not be as quick on the uptake, you call them a racist. And in the meantime, it's ignored that you consider helping black kids get better at the tests, helping black kids' parents realize what free test prep programs there are in those neighborhoods. The tests just take a little bit of practice, but you're not supposed to talk about it because the tests, quote unquote, are racist. It's an abuse of language, and it's abuse of the very conception of what racism is. That's not what my mother raised me in. That's not your grandmother's racism. That's something that comes from a way of thinking that was marginal in 1955, became sexy in about 1966, and here in 2021 is being treated as impregnable wisdom. Someone black has...
Bruh, he's spitting bars, bruh. He's spitting bars, dog.
Speak out against that. So that's what I mean by the exaggeration and the artificiality and the outright harm that comes from these sorts of things.
Well, and with regard to it being a pose, so is it a pose of? So I could say, well, is it a pose of unearned virtue? I mean, virtue is not easy to earn. True virtue. You have to establish, let's say, we'll see where we go with this. Maybe you have to establish a relationship with beauty, and beauty is real. You have to establish a relationship with truth, and truth is real. And so to earn virtue is difficult because beauty and truth are imposing and formidable. If you have any sense at all, you see that. And so that's a daunting task to establish genuine virtue, and a terrifying task. And is the pose the willingness to adopt, because when I talk to the ideologue types, and maybe that happened most famously with an interview I had with, I think it was
I was
Helen.
Just thinking about it. You mean Michael Eric Dyson, right? Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't thinking about Dyson. I was thinking about a GQ interviewer, and that interview's been watched like 40 million times now. It's this ideological pose is the aping of virtue, as far as I can tell, and I mean that. And it's sort of a technical sense, is that you master this language and it contains the expressions of true virtue. But, the kind of problems that you were talking about, and I see this on the environmental.
I see what he's saying when he says, is it virtue? Because those who live within the frame of mind that think society is racist, that is their virtue. You know what I mean? Because they believe that this is real. They believe what they're standing for is real. They believe that they're morally sound with their point of view because they feel like the world exists this way. But it's not really, it's virtue to them, but it's not virtue as a whole, because that's not where we are in society. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's fucked up because they And I've been there. So I've been there. It's because you believe in this shit so much. It is virtue for you. I mean, this is how I see the world. I believe this shit so much. The world is the way it is. The world is the way I see it, the way I perceive it. So it is by default virtue to me. You know what I mean? But and that gets dangerous. I see it all day. That's why motherfuckers will come at me or tear me down because I'm attacking their virtue. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know what like at the big picture, what would need to take place to get everybody on the same page. And the big picture to me, or the big thing to me, is being able to have that conversation rationally. You know what I'm saying? Trying to put the virtue aside, you know what I mean, and just talk about this, just talk about it like it's 2 + 2. I mean, just try to cut down the emotion as much as you can so we can actually have a conversation about it, whether it's productive or negative or whatever, just to put this out there so you can see it from my side and I can see it from your side and we can have a middle ground. But as long as this is a us versus them type of thing, we never get nowhere. And it's gonna create that much more animosity and that much more hostility. You know what I'm saying? Amongst white folks, black folks, everybody, dog, because everybody think that the box they live in is the right one.
Side of things too. Well, how do you get black kids to do better in elementary school, let's say? Well, that's a more manageable problem. It's a problem that would take a little bit more humility to conceptualize, and it's also a really, really hard problem. Mm-hmm. And so to be virtuous in your attempts to solve that would probably require the dedication of your entire life, really, to take a good crack at that problem, right? Because that's a tough problem, man. And so maybe you don't want to do that because and then you're enticed by your educators into this alternative possibility where all you really have to do is master a set of propositions and you're on the winning side. And that also gives you some convenient enemies, and maybe it fulfills to some degree the religious instinct. And it appalls me to see the universities complicit in this, and that they've come to see that. And I think part of that falseness and artificiality that you described, I think the fact that exists is part of the overbearing insistence that the veil not be lifted and that no one question this, because what is underneath it is so damn ugly.
Yeah, Jordan, you actually...
I think if they lifted the veil from black folk, it's not going to be ugly. It's going to make everybody goddamn party and shit, bro. Everybody get paid. Everybody be happy. Everybody know the truth, man. But
you have nailed something. I would be loath to go so near that word virtue, because the last thing I want to do is imply that somebody isn't virtuous. Nevertheless, you're getting it in that it's an unearned virtue which people are settling for, not because they're so callow as to wish to be virtuous without earning their stripes, but because religion is attractive. And so if you are surrounded by people who are brandishing this message that everything that you don't like is racist and you can get beyond it that way, it's not that you're lazy, it's not that you're trying to get stripes that you didn't earn, but it's comfortable, because part of being in that religion is that there's an us versus them conception, which is very comforting. You're part of a mission of uplift, which is very comforting. And in a university, that religion is there. It's as if they're, people from a church who are behind tables out in the plaza who are waiting to recruit people. That's there as soon as you hit campus. And so that's why so many people, and now it's not just black kids, it's also white kids, fall for this way of looking at things, where what it is you become virtuous without having done the sorts of things that ideally one might have. You're virtue signaling, and it is unearned virtue, but it's because you wish to have a cloak. You're seeking a comfort zone. I can't hate anybody for that, but it does.
I don't even think they're seeking it though. I don't even think they're aware of it. They're not aware of the cloak that they have because they think that they're living in their truth, but they're not. That's the problem. No one knows they're getting brainwashed. No one knows that this is just a comfortable pocket to be in. It exists that way. When you've gotten to the point where you literally are what you stand for, you identify as this. I identify as that. I identify as a victim of the fucked up racist ass society we live in, man. It's not. I don't think there's this. There's not this overt act to maintain a cloak, or how he put it, man. I just think it occurs that way. And then when you question someone's cloak when they're unaware that they're even wearing the cloak, that's rough. Anyway, he's dope. Bro. That was a dope ass conversation, man. Yeah, John Mcwhorter. I think my homie had put me on him a while ago. I just never really dove into a shit like that. That's fire. That was lit, man. But anyway, I definitely, I like that. I like that, man. But yeah, let me know y'all thoughts, man. Yeah, peace.